How to partner with agility. We don't have a map, but what we do have is a compass. A map lays everything out for you. A compass says, go that way. It doesn't care what's in your way, and if you're following this compass, neither do you. Chase Jarvis, The Chase Jarvis Show, Creator Therapy with Seth Godin in New York. When my eldest son was young, he would get up in the middle of the night wide awake. I would want my wife to sleep, and when we were at my in-laws, not to disturb the rest of the household. So I'd put on my pants, search for the keys in the lightless house, and then grab him and hustle to the car in the dark. Our summer baby must have been around 6 months old, as I distinctly remember seeing my breath in the chilly California winter air. He may have fussed, but once we started moving, everything would grow silent. I remember the hallmark Southern California traffic would be virtually gone, aside from an occasional fast-moving pickup truck or a slow driver with an out-of-state license plate. The stars would be clear and bright. I'd occasionally binge on a business podcast. I was just getting into the pleasures of audio rather than reading. Being a baby's primary caretaker means you can't just sit and read a book, as your hands have other immediate needs. Often, though, it was just me, my thoughts, and the endless road. Imagine being a New York cab driver, an active participant in the scene, but still objective enough to appreciate the spectacle of the night, and tired from the time of day, but lucid enough to drive. It was like removing a filter from my emotional landscape. Our memories from childhood, assumptions I suddenly realized were opinion, not fact, and new, seemingly obvious business ideas floated on the blank dashboard ahead. It would happen any time from 1 a.m. to 3 a.m., and because he'd often wake up if I lifted him out, it wasn't unusual for me to drive home just before dawn. I'd come back tired, of course, but also invigorated, as if I had taken a long hot bath, or I discovered an amazing post-coital moment. It was as if I discovered something that made everything clearer. It took me many nights, though, to embrace this chaos. I remember being angry at my son for not sleeping, as if he were somehow doing it just to get under my skin. Or perhaps I was doing something wrong and was just, despite my desire to love, just an ill-equipped father. I would feel bitter because it was my job to chauffeur him around, a job that no one else could do, and a job that, when my wife and I decided to have a baby, I was actually stupid enough to elect to do. I sat salty, back sore from the lack of sleep and arms tired from being at the 10 and 2, as I drove for hours with literally no particular place to go. I was being pulled in directions I didn't want to be, physically and otherwise. Once I began to accept this interruption, then I started to relax. As an introvert, I realized these 1, 2, or 3 hours of silence could be part of how I recharged, like a bonus solitude away from my daily fatherhood ruckus. I began to lean into these moments, and when he fussed hard in the middle of the night, I'd embrace the challenge. The white space is, by definition, uncomfortable. It is a time for and between a decision being made. It is a gap from the first action to the next action. It is also often without a definitive end, and sometimes without even a definitive beginning. It is also a gift. Floating between here and there, the white space gives us the objectivity to see how we operate. It exposes our systems. It widens the moment between response and reaction, as it doesn't allow us to jump to the next conclusion, and if we do, our reaction just sits in space, like a vacuum, for us to see and digest. This clarity is a rare opportunity. All things eventually conclude, even the moments when we are too distant to see the shore and too far to see the destination. My son turned 7 this summer. His younger brother just turned 4. The endless road has ended, and that white space now is becoming a distant memory in itself. Game plan for your agility. Number 1, trust your curiosity. Number 2, lean into observing what's next. Number 3, believe every new experience will be useful later. How to strengthen your agility. Number 1, let someone else take the lead in an area you usually control. Number 2, try making small changes in your habits to exercise your flexibility muscle. And number 3, learn a new hobby that will help you apply old concepts to new experiences. Boundaries for your agility. Adding more because we can, number 1, And number 2, believing something needs to be changed when it just needs to be persevered. Busta Rhymes is the quintessential New York rapper. In fact, many fans, including myself, will put him among the top 10 rappers of all time. He began his career in high school with the short-lived, influential hip-hop group Leaders of the New School. What keeps him top of mind as a solo artist, though, it's his consistent agility. His breakout hit 1995's Woo-Ha, Got You All in Check, has him rapping at a stream of consciousness, dizzying clip. His 1997 landmark song, Put Your Hands Where My Eyes Can See, is him flowing almost ridiculously low and slow, as if he's trying to match the level of the deep, syncopated bass drums. And one of his biggest appearances on Chris Brown's 2011 club smash Look At Me Now is rapped so fast that there are viral videos of listeners and fellow rappers attempting to follow his lines. They often fail. Now a middle-aged rapper, Busta just released his 10th studio album. He started as a teenager in the late 80s. On Drink Champs, a video podcast hosted by fellow veteran New York rapper Nori and Miami DJ EFN, he explains what happens when he enters the recording booth. He says, "On a deeper level too, I don't think people realize how beautiful it is to be able to go into the studio as an artist and lock yourself into those 4 walls. You love your woman, you love your kids, your mom, your friends, everybody, but the studio don't argue with you. The studio don't ask you no questions. The studio does not stress you out. There are a lot of times when I go to the studio and I just sit there and I don't even create nothing. I just go in there for some peace of mind. But when I do go in the studio, not only do I get a chance to avoid shit I don't want to be bothered with, but I can become whomever I want to be. If I think about it, I can become a fucking Avenger in the studio. I can become an Avenger. If I want to become the Incredible Hulk in the studio, I can become the Incredible Hulk. That is a fact. And that you can freely share whatever your thoughts and feelings are and capture it. And there are no repercussions, because you can live with it for a week or two to determine whether or not you even want to share that shit. And the world doesn't have to give you criticism within that space of you trying to create it. And then you go back and revisit it and perfect it and revisit it and perfect it and get it to a place where it becomes so impeccable that before you even share it in a playable form, you've mastered the intricacies of this thing so phenomenally, you already know what it's going to be like when they hear it. You already know what it's going to be like on the stage. You already know what it's going to be when it's time to compete. Agility is play. You can do this, you can do that. The possibilities seem endless. When you show up in the arena, as Brene Brown might say, you don't know what mood you might be in, what will be on your mind, or how your first action will land. It's like poker the moment right before you get your hand. And like a card shark, Busta can anticipate how things may go. He says you already know what it's going to be when they hear it. You already know what it's going to be on that stage. And you already know what it's going to be when it's time to compete. Because he spent so much time in the arena. It's the same way I can envision how this book will land when I share it with my coaching clients, as I talk about it on a keynote stage, and as we discuss in the Understanding Your Fate chapter, where it sits among other creative business books. But notice that Busta isn't just saying what he can do. These 4 walls. Outside voices aren't let in. These are restrictions and boundaries to this expression. This, in turn, gives him the freedom to explore. When you're anticipating that 5-stud poker hand, you know that you're not going to get a Uno card. You know that anything you get will be an ace, a king, or something in between. Anything else will be shocking. Anything else will make you question fully exploring the possibilities. Anything else will make you feel unsafe to play. The boundaries make us free. Timing is different than time. As a resource, time is maximizing the literal moments you've got to make the greatest possible and positive impact. Agility is timing, knowing when to move, and since the best opportunities usually don't give us much notice, it's about always being prepared. Agility is trusting yourself to make the next best move. It is intuitive, fluid, and welcoming. In her book, The Creative Leap, Unleash Curiosity, Improvisation, and Intuition at Work, consultant Natalie Nixon describes the intuitive process in 3 steps. Think of leading with intuition as the 3 concentric circles. Wonder is at the core because stillness and observation are required for us to hear that little voice inside. The second circle is discernment, finding the strength to act on our intuition and speak up. Rigor also comes into play here as we dig deep to find the data to back up our intuition. The outermost circle comes from making the practice of listening to and action on our intuition. Nixon's 3 concentric circles of reflecting, strategizing, and doing parallel my own cycle of renewing, pursuing, and doing. I broke it down in the Productive Bite-Sized Entrepreneur, now available in the Ultimate Bite-Sized Entrepreneur trilogy. What I say is, I call the productivity process pursuing, doing, or renewing. Is an infinite, iterative flow where we research our interests, implement our theories, and assess our growth. It is not unlike Eric Ries's landmark lean startup method, in which you ship the minimal viable product, or MVP, to get feedback from others as much as possible. In the case of productivity, we're getting feedback from ourselves. When you think about it, we all do things this way. We think of something, we do it, and then we see if it worked out. When it comes to agility, though, difference is seeing the potential in something that isn't tied to previous actions. In the creative leap, Nixon says perspective is, quote, mining the past in order to get insight into the future, while forecasting requires the practice of inquiry, improvisation, and intuition. It necessitates an ability to toggle between wonder and rigor. Perspective, seeing how to make the biggest impact because of your previous results, is offered by another precious resource, time. On the other hand, forecasting, taking the educated guess as to what we should do next, is offered by agility. The agile rich and the agile challenge alike do the same cycle of pursuing, doing, and renewing as everyone else, just at quantum levels. To paraphrase Nixon, agility is the high-speed toggle between wonder and rigor, observing and doing, and even trying and failing. Agility is not paralyzed by potential failure. As you know, you'll get another opportunity to choose tomorrow. Agility means the opportunity outweighs our sunk cost. Agility assumes that the higher the inputs, the better the strategy. Basecamp co-founder Jason Fried says, in software, people often turn to Apple for design inspiration. It makes sense. The company is wildly successful, it defines trends, and it pushes envelopes. But copying Apple doesn't make you a trendsetter or a rule breaker. It makes you a follower. When everyone mimics Apple, everyone tends to look the same. Apple's clean and simple aesthetic is Apple's, it's not yours. Apple reflects not just the tech ambitions of the late co-founder Steve Jobs, but his time doing transcendental meditation, his time studying history, and his 60s counterculture aesthetic. That groundbreaking fonts and all the groundbreaking fonts available on the first Apple computers, according to the book Becoming Steve Jobs, they were inspired by a calligraphy class he took in college. Outside influences gave him success in his main field. Cross-pollination adds fuel to the change you seek. I recently talked to serial entrepreneur Dave Kroc. He's an accomplished drummer. When he considers getting involved with a new company, he looks at the rhythm of the business, just as he would anticipate the perfect hi-hat or bass drum drop when on stage. I spent my college years DJing, and that pacing, knowing when to let the beat ride, when to let the anticipation build up, and when to change the direction with an entirely new tune, helps me now as a writer, public speaker, and even a one-on-one business coach. When you guide others on their journey, it is priceless to know when to let someone talk, to allow uncomfortable silence, or to ask a question to guide their conversation elsewhere. There is no wasted experience. They are all valuable in our toolbox. A great example is fellow DJ D-Nice. The former rapper came to the spotlight with his riveting music sets. The catch? His curated events were all on Instagram. It was spring 2020, just as America started sheltering in place. From the Washington Post. Last week, Jones woke up at 4 a.m. and instead of being crippled by the anxiety of the times, decided to throw a party online for his famous pals. With his laptop, signature wide-brim hat, and view of Los Angeles ready to go, Jones played music he loved for an Instagram party of about 200 music industry heavyweights. The next day, 2,000 people joined. Then 12,000. Then 25,000. By Saturday night, more than 100,000 people, including former First Lady Michelle Obama and a host of A-listers, were jamming together at Club Quarantine, the tongue-in-cheek shorthand for the hours-long broadcast streamed live from Jones's kitchen on his smartphone. How could he know that a pandemic was coming? He couldn't. How could he know that he'd become the premier virtual DJ of this era? He didn't. And he didn't have to. I just wanted to do something good for the people, and it turned into something really good. It was so unexpected, Jones said in an interview. Jones' agility wasn't based in the moment. Agility is never instantaneous, though it could feel like it to everyone else or even to yourself. It is always rooted in past decisions. I actually grew up with D-Nice. When I was in middle school, his first rap album, Call Me D-Nice, was a perennial favorite. As hip-hop era shifted, Jones became an old-school set live DJ, a professional photographer, and music documentarian. Moving the crowd, reading the cultural pulse, and capturing the moments are skills Jones built over time. And when Club Quarantine opportunity presented itself, he was ready. For the Agile Rich and Agile Challenge, the boundaries can become blurred between curious exploration and avoidance of rigor. Two tough factors come into play. Number one, we can be adding more because we can. And number two, believing something needs to be changed when it just needs to be persevered. Adding more feeds the ego. Sometimes we identify with the agility and not with the practicality of it. Is joining a new club when your dance card is full? Being a shoulder to cry on when you don't have the bandwidth? Pursuing yet another creative opportunity when abandoned ones lie in your wake actually help nourish the world? Hell, are you even nourishing yourself? Yes, you might proudly attribute serving others with your busy hustle nature. Your busyness may also unravel any goodwill you've gained from those you served. Agility can diffuse the impact of what you do. In Essentialism, the disciplined pursuit of less, Gregory Cowan says, essentialists see trade-offs as an inherent part of life, not as an inherently negative part of life. Instead of asking, what do I have to give up? They ask, what can I go big on? The cumulative impact of this small change in thinking can be profound. Public speaking coach Grant Baldwin puts it like this. The longer it takes to describe you, the more your speaking fee drops. He's not just talking about money. He's talking about credibility. He's talking about potential impact. And he's talking about your value to the world. The same is true for investors in your new idea, publishers considering your new book, customers thinking about switching to your brand, and the community who you are building trust to serve. The commonality is telling a new person why they should spend time with your vision. It is about getting people as comfortable with your big idea as quickly as possible. And that, of course, reflects the clarity you have with your own vision. I call it the cocktail test. How would you describe your important vision to someone you just met at a party? I took this quite literally early in my career, and I'd find myself stumbling and fumbling over what exactly I was doing as a writer. Every year, though, the vision would get tighter, and before I knew it, I could tell people about my intention in one breath. The process began again after I became an entrepreneur, and after several years, my vision is clear. I'm debunking the myth that you have to sacrifice everything to make your entrepreneurial or creative mark. Your product isn't for everyone. Your services can't lift everyone. And your voice doesn't resonate with all. Not everyone in your life likes you. Why would what you have to offer be for everyone either? True agility begins with purpose. Business coach Marie Forleo's multi-million-dollar empire is built on the first page of her book, Everything is Figureoutable. The power isn't out there, it's in you. Marketer and teacher Seth Godin simply says, for more than 30 years, I've been trying to turn on the lights, inspire people, and teach them how to level up. His brilliant Akimbo podcast, online courses, and classic keynote are all part of this simple idea. Everything I'm involved in, from keynotes to books to coaching, revolves around my short, focused entrepreneurial creed. This is why you're reading my 25th book. This is how I make more with less. This is how you can partner with agility. It is simpler for me to adapt, create, and take advantage of new opportunities because I'm providing the same discussion no matter what the platform. It's also easier for investors, publishers, and communities to understand my vision, bring better sales, and higher investment because they trust my expertise and clarity. We can also believe something needs to be changed when it just needs to be persevered. Pivoting to a new idea kicks in the adrenaline. It feels good. A pregnant idea is always more romantic than a crying baby. You can't have one without the other, though. And to the follow-through, what the Creative Leap author Natalie Nixon calls transitioning from wonder to rigor, is where you truly bring your worth. Your core ideas, your core intention as a creator, are all built in the struggle, not in the feast. I wrote in Bring Your Worth, Level Up Your Creative Power, Value, and Service to the World. The biggest danger, then, isn't missing your opportunity to shine brightly, to create wealth, or to impact the world, but to not allow the life experiences to prepare you to do those very things. The circumstances will come in disguises, cloaked in a frustrating situation, a setback, or unexpected development. Your life is tailor-made to develop muscles you need to succeed. The universe doesn't want to punish you, which is as preposterous as believing gravity dislikes skydivers or flames hate firefighters. It is just physics, science, and nature. And the universe knows exactly when to give you what you need, like a flower always blossoming on time. We have been fooled into believing trying something new is a risk. It's not. Bravery is picking up the messy pieces from a failure, a mistake, a misstep, and continuing on the journey anyway because it fits. To paraphrase poet Mary Oliver, what you plan to do with your one wild and precious life. As I talk about focus, giving up can be great. Giving in, though, doesn't ever make sense. The image of the tragic artist who lays down his tools rather than fall short of his impeccable ideals holds no romance for me, Elizabeth Gilbert says in Big Magic. I don't see this path as heroic. I think it's far more honorable to stay in the game, even if you've been objectively losing the game, than excuse yourself from participation because of your delicate sensibilities. But in order to stay in the game, you must let go of your fantasy of perfection. As a coach, I instinctively get chills when I hear someone talk about starting over, getting a clean slate, or erasing the past. That isn't even possible. As the classic saying goes, no matter where you go, there you are. Eventually, you're going to have to do that work. There are things happening beyond your scope. It's not from ignorance or naivete, but simply because you aren't meant to see them. Your name could be spoken in rooms. Your next best step could be materializing as you read this. Your co-conspirator in a game-changing partnership could be lining up to meet you at your level. You just won't know it until you're supposed to. Agility is trusting you'll be ready when they appear.